Hello, and thank you very much, Mondi Litfest, for giving me this opportunity to talk about the liberation war of Bangladesh and 50 years on. When we think of the liberation war of Bangladesh, there is no denying the fact that the language movement in East Pakistan, which kind of began in 1952, it was a cultural revolt, having fundamentally strong secular nature. The movement was inevitable because the linguistic oppression of Pakistan government, which was controlled from West Pakistan, this was prone to Urdu, and that was vehemently rejected by the Bangla-speaking majority in East Pakistan. But let me start my discussion that is revolving around 1971 with the very idea that it was always very religious in nature. This was not completely secular from the perspective of at least West Pakistan. And one important thing that comes to my mind at that point of time is 1967. The year is 1967, and the lyric of a song written by the famous Bengali poet Kazi Nazrul Islam, which goes like "Kheliche Jolo Devi, Shunilo Shagoro Jole." If it is translated in English, it becomes something like the goddess of water is playing in the blue water of the ocean. Now this was changed. The idea of Kheliche Jolo Devi was changed to Kheliche Jolo Puri, because the idea of Jolo Devi was akin to the Hindu goddess. Hence it was changed. My point is very simple here. If you look at the context of 1971, there is the secular idea, but at the same time there is the idea of the minority Hindus being somewhere down the line repressed. So the liberation war of 1971, which is the culmination of all these things that eventually victimized the Hindus more, instead of an undifferentiated violence perpetrated on the secular identity of Bengali-speaking majority in East Pakistan especially. And I remember one Major Bashir statement. I read that in a book, and that Major Bashir statement was for the first time published in Sunday Times. The date, if my memory does not betray, it was 13th June 1971, and Major Bashir is writing in Sunday Times. He's talking to a journalist, and the name of the journalist was Anthony Mascarenhas, and that was published in Sunday Times. What did Major Bashir say? He said, this is a battle between pure and impure. The pure people are the Muslim people, and there are many here who have Muslim names, but they are Hindu at heart. Major Bashir is saying we are sorting them out. Those who are left will be the real Muslims, and we will find the better place to live in. And this is exactly what happens when 1971 takes place. People are talking about liberation war. We should celebrate this, but at the same time we shouldn't forget the idea that the account of 1971, which is not coming from anybody from the subcontinent, which is coming, say, for instance, somebody like Archer Blood, who was the US Consul General in Dhaka in 1971, and his testimony, the archival records that has been dealt with by somebody called Gary J. Burse in his book Blood Telegram, and he's showing the statement of Blood, where Blood is saying that we were also harboring, all of us were harboring Bengalis, and mostly the Hindus, and they were all like, they were fear-stricken. They were trying to flee mostly by taking refuge with our own servants, and they were very low-class people. They were not even political refugees, Blood is saying. They were not political refugees, they were low-class people. My own study for the last 5-6 years, in terms of this, has shown me that they were not just Hindu, they were traditionally defined lower caste Hindus, and they were very much fear-stricken, and they had the fear that they will be killed solely because they were Hindu. So when we are looking at this account or many other accounts of Archer Blood, Blood is also saying that it is going to establish this as a selective genocide. Blood is saying that he and his team tenaciously kept up the reporting of this anti-Hindu genocide going on in 1971. The Pakistani army would, move into village, and they will ask where the Hindus lived. They will sort out the Hindus, will kill them. So whenever we talk about this genocide, that probably shows its ominous face of the minority Hindu repression. Even if you talk about the women in 1971, the women fighters, the survivors, Even Bangladesh government after 1971, they came to be hailed as Birangona for their, for their courageous fight. So, but although the significant female faces of the language movement, like say Nilima Ibrahim, Amina Begum, or Ashalata Sen, they do project, I know, they do project the picture of the secular nature of the movement. But at the same time, there is no doubt about the fact that the Hindu women suffered more, because they were seen as the bearers of Hindu culture. They were seen as the bearers of Hindu identity. Hence the retribution, the idea of the teep, the ritual of wearing teep or bindi, that also came under an authoritarian control. Even Pakistan government declared the use of shari as being completely un-Islamic, So that was also banned. And we can understand why is this happening in 1971. Let me share the anecdote of the report, a copy of the supplementary report of the Hamadur Commission, Hamadur Rahman Commission, that was published in the online edition of India Today on August 21, 2000. It's worth to mention here that Hamadur Rahman was a Bengali Chief Justice of Pakistan and a former Vice Chancellor of Dhaka. Even if we look at his report, then we'll also be able to understand the concept of the selective genocide. In the, I believe it's the section 2, the second chapter, part 5 of the report, where he is looking at some of the witnesses and their testimony. What he's saying that the statements appearing in the evidence of Colonel Aziz Ahmed Khan, who was the witness number 276, and the commanding officer of 8 Baluch and then Company 86 Mujahid Battalion, they are also directly relevant here. This report is saying, Hamadur Rahman Commission report is saying. And the witness is saying that Brigadier Arab told me to destroy all houses in Joydevpur. He even often used to ask how many Hindus we had killed. In May 1971, there was an order in writing. There was an order in writing to kill the Hindus. And the order was coming from Brigadier Malik of 23 Brigade. That basically speaks volume in favor of the fact that the population, the Hindu population, the minority Hindu population in Bangladesh drastically in East Pakistan, and then Bangladesh was going to come down drastically. Say for instance, if you go by the statistics, in 1951 there were like 22% Hindus in East Pakistan. In 1961 this drastically came down to 18%. In 1971 that came around like 15 to 16%. In today's Bangladesh it's slightly less than 8%. And also the number of refugees we see, that also goes to prove that 1971 was not killing Hindus and Muslims alike in East Pakistan. The West Pakistani government was not doing that probably. Had they done that, then the number of refugees wouldn't have been, I would say, that huge for the Hindus. It was like 30,000 Hindus came as refugees in 1971 and after 1971, mainly in 1971, and which is compared to the Muslim refugees, it's huge, because the number of Muslim refugees was around 4,43,000. Some other groups were also there, the other religious groups, other minorities, they were like 1,15,000 or so. That goes on to talk about the fact that the liberation war cannot be simply ascribed to the culmination of secular cultural movement, where the idea of Bengali as the lingua franca plays the pivotal role. It plays the pivotal idea. And most importantly, when we talk about the post-1971, we also should end our discussion of 1971 with that fictional note of Taslima Nasreen's Lodja, where that protagonist Shudhamoy, he was detained by the Pakistani soldiers, and he even changed his name and he became Sirajuddin. But that also did not help him much, because he was kind of found to be a non-Muslim. He was found to be a Hindu, and therefore he was brutally tortured by the Pakistani soldiers. Even his wife could not fight shy of this. his wife Kiranmoyi's pretension to be a Muslim woman without vermilion, without bangles, that also could not help Kiranmoyi. Sudhamoy and Kiranmoyi, they had the dream of Bangladesh, a secular Bangladesh that could be achieved by liberation war, but that was probably not going to be the scenario as they dreamed it to be, Even I think Indian government's position is also pretty interesting here. If you look at P. Endher's book like Indira Gandhi, The Emergency and Indian Democracy, if you look at the Nehru Museum Library papers, NHML papers, we can also find so many anecdotes, important archival records as well. And even in Gary Buss's book, we can find this, that Indian government probably privately they believed that Pakistan, by driving out the Hindus in millions, they hoped to reduce the number of Bengalis. So they were not majority any longer in Pakistan. They were not the majority in Pakistan. And by doing this, they wanted to destroy the Awami League also as a political party, political strength, as a political force, by getting rid of the Willy Hindu, who was supposed to be the principal reason, who was supposed to have misled the simple Bengali Muslims into demanding the autonomy. Even we can read and we can actually read the anecdotes of Durga Prasad Dhar. Durga Prasad Dhar was Indian ambassador in Moscow. He was decrying, that Pakistan was basically, responsible for selecting the Hindus for butchery. But then this was not to be publicized in India, And Buss's book also establishes the fact that this was because of the inflammatory politicking on the right-wing Hindu political parties, quote unquote, Jansangh, that we could not make it public in India. And he even said we were doing our best that this matter is not to be publicized in India. So this is India's position in 1971. We can celebrate that. We should celebrate that. Our pride, our hope, Bengali language. But at the same time, these loopholes need to be looked at. These ideas need to be taken into consideration. Now the next question, obvious question, is what happened after 1971? 1971, after all this, gave Bangladesh, that gave us Bangabandhu Mujibur Rahman. In 1971, Bangladesh was declared to be a people's republic, rather than an Islamic state. Their principles were secularism, their principles were democracy, socialism, nationalism. But then this was not very long that Mujibur Rahman himself could realize that his policies, Awami League's policies, were alienating the Islamic forces in his own country. So the Islamic Academy that Mujib had himself abolished in 1972, it was revived in probably March 1975. And also Islamic nationalist political parties like Jamaat-e-Islami and Jamaat-e Ulama Islam. These political parties were previously banned, but because of a strong pressure from the leftist revolutionaries, they were also they were also co-opted in the mainstream politics. And we know the assassination of Mujibur Rahman on 15th August 1975. That made the situation even more grim, that made the situation even more brutal. Because there is the episode of army for 15 years, 1975 to 1990. And we talk about this episode as something which is dangerous for the minority Hindus. In 1977, Ziaur Rahman is, taking over as the Chief Martial Law Administrator. This was also a very significant period because the Article 12 of the Constitution, which provided Bangladesh for the adoption of secularism, this was omitted by an official order in the year 1977, probably the month of April, 23rd April maybe. Then 1978, there was, gradual strengthening of Ziaur Rahman's political power. Rahman founded BNP, and this went on to be the picture of Bangladesh and the minority Hindus in Bangladesh. What we are witnessing in Bangladesh for the last few days in 2021 even is actually a standard modus operandi, of Hindu repression exercise at regular intervals that happened in post-2001 election. That has been even for instance, we talk about 2016, the Awami League party was there. Even in just 2016, there were as many as 30 well-planned attacks on Hindu populace of, say, several districts like Kushtia, like Pabna, Nator, Dhaka, and many, many others. even the attack on the Ishkon Mandir in 2021, that also reminds us of the 1946 Gori days in Noakhali. Because Awami League, although they are, they are believed to be a pro-minority political party in Bangladesh, but still, sometimes they have to compromise as well. For example, in 2007, the fundamentalist party in Bangladesh, like Khalifat Andolin Majlis, they came to sign an agreement with Awami League. The coalition was formed, and that coalition gave Khalifat Andolin Majlis, the provision to implement Sharia law because they extended their support to this coalition government. The people in Bangladesh, the liberal minds are writing books about this. Salam Azad wrote a book in 2004. Bhangamot was published. This was banned in Bangladesh. Mr. Azad had to take shelter in Delhi. So this has been the picture of Bangladesh for a long, long time. Even for a research of Mr. Azad himself, in today's Bangladesh even, for the last 10, 15 years, every day at least 475 Hindus have to migrate from Bangladesh to India because of this minority oppression in Bangladesh. To look at this more effectively, Deep Haldar, the author of Blood Island, and myself, Avishek Biswas, we are going to embark on a journey where we'll be trying to look at the condition of Bangladeshi Hindus in Bangladesh, and we have planned to come up with a book very soon. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.